Our guest today is Todd Hardy, the Director of Sales for Schill Grounds Management, a 31 branch company in the Midwest and Canada. Todd will be speaking at our Summer Growth Summit, August 19th through the 21st. In the show notes, you can find the registration link, and we have our super early bird discount, save $400 if you buy tickets before April 24th. On this podcast is going to share his approach to sales and sales management and recruiting salespeople. Servant leadership is his MO, if you will, for being a great business developer. He talks a lot about how to focus on the client needs over your personal gain as a salesperson, how that drives success. He'll talk about company culture, right? And how we should prioritize the employee and the customer's satisfaction over our own as a manager, right? So he walks the talk. He talks a lot about performance management, right? And how you create consistent and clear expectations so that you and your salespeople and business developers are all on the same page. We also talk about navigating personnel that have personal problems and how you go about navigating that as the manager or leader. We talk about the need for networking, not only as a business developer, but in the recruiting process. He shares quite a bit of his secret sauce. As I said, Todd Hardy will also be laying out much more specifics on business development and managing business developers and comp plans, etc., during our Summer Growth Summit. So if you want to join us, go to the link in the show notes or go to my website at jeffreyscott.biz and go to the events tab and you can register from there. Let's jump right in now to the podcast with Todd Hardy. Welcome to the Ultimate Landscape CEO, Todd. So glad to have you as a guest.
Jeffrey, thanks for having me.
Let the audience know who you are. Give us like a couple-minute background.
Would love to. So I have about 25 years in the landscape business, in the industry. I've worked for quite a few people, but these last couple decades, I've kind of been on, I'm going to say the Schill train, even though it's only been 4 years. But the company that I was working for in Cincinnati was one of the companies that got acquired by the Schill acquisition train and become part of the collective.
Yeah.
My experience has always been in account management, operations management, and sales, gravitating towards relationships. And so the last few years, I've been fortunate to lead the business development and sales team at Schill. And that's what I do today.
So that's a big task, is it not?
It is a big task. And, I think that I laugh and I talk about like the attitude or the culture of a salesperson. It's kind of like herding cats. When you get above 2 or 3, you get them in a room and you're like trying to herd. If you think about that visualization of herding cats, it can be challenging sometimes, but I enjoy it. I love it. The dynamics of serving people and serving clients and finding solutions. Those are the things that really excite me and drive me when I wake up in the morning.
So just a couple numbers. How many salespeople do you oversee?
There are 13 business developers that I oversee in our platform.
Okay. So you're overseeing the business development side and account management is under the branches.
That is correct. Yeah. The account management, because they're in the day-to-day routine and still have some, operational, promises and they're giving out schedules. They're more tied to the branches. That doesn't mean that we don't provide some sales leadership and some sales coaching into the branches for the account managers, but the direct responsibility of those 13 people, plus we've got a sales estimator that works with me.
So you're overseeing 13. I'm just going to guess here. So your team's got to bring in at least 13 million a year?
More.
Are you allowed to say how much?
With the white and the green, it's over 20 million a year.
Oh, white and green over 20 million.
Yeah. And you got to remember some of our market, from the range of the southern to the northern markets that we operate in, the snow is handled significantly different from, a very limited, I'm going to say loosey-goosey type T&M or per occurrence, to where it's as rigid as a maintenance contract where there's a fixed price and there's no plus or no minus in them.
Some people think of business developers as being purely driven by money and commission. And that's just how it looks from the outside. I'm sure you're going to tell us a much more complex, nuanced insight, but let's just start at the core. What drives success in sales? You've got years and under your belt and then under your collective belt. So tell us what's at the core of your team's success.
Jeffrey, it's a great question. And I think that when I look back and I think about what made me successful, what's some of I call it the number one key character trait of the people that are around me are successful is their servant attitude. And it's a focus of being outwardly focused versus inwardly focused, being more concerned about the person and their needs that are in front of you versus your wants and desires and needs. And so often in any relationship that we get into, it's easy for us to get off of the track. And we become very focused on the things that seemingly matter most to us versus what matters more to you. And I find that the people that are extremely successful, not only in business development, but also in account management, are much more focused outwardly, much more focused on the needs and desires of our client or prospect than the company or themselves. And that's a challenge because you think about the culture that we live in. We live in a very I want it yesterday. More revenue per FTE per person. You hear those things frequently. And so the pressures, mount. It's not like, you get bigger and the pressures go down. You get bigger as a company and the pressures go up. And it's really challenging to keep that attitude. But ultimately, that attitude is what drives our success.
It's interesting you say that. I was talking to somebody on my team who has stage fright, and I literally gave her that exact same advice. I said, if you take all your internal voices and focus and just think about the audience, take this third eye off of you and put it directly on your audience, and what do they need? What can you do for them? And if you can stay in that mindset, you do a much better job on the stage.
Without question. And I think in anything in life, you'd say public speaking. I could say, when we go donate our time, when we donate our energy, we donate our resources, if we're thinking about what we're going to apply that to and how that's going to be utilized. You think about you brought up going to an event where they're going to speak. I share with people, go to networking events. You think you go to, a happy hour networking event, or you go to some type of industry trade networking event. Even you go to, an industry networking event. I always take the approach, people usually, I've been around so many people in my life that always say, I wonder what I'm going to get out of it. What am I going to get out of it today? And I used to work for someone who said, I want you to bring me back 3 names of people you're going to follow up with. Great stuff, right? Great KPIs, tracking metrics. What am I going to get? But at the end of the day, if my attitude reflects that, I'm going to be I'm not going to say caustic to be around, but there's going to be an air around me that is almost going to become unapproachable, from some people, because they're going to feel like I want to get something from you. I'm here to get something. We should approach those situations by, what can I give you? What can I share with you? How about we just be authentic when we're in the room and be present? Those are really, I know those are maybe trendy words or fad words, but you really boil it down. I want to be present and I want to be authentic. I just want to be who I am, standing in front of you, talking about the things that are important to you. Maybe they're important to me, but if they're not, we can say our piece and move on, and we'll find another person that we'll connect with.
So Todd, is this a Todd value, a Schill value, or when business developers from around the world get together and talk, everybody already understands this?
I can't speak to business developers all around the world. What I can say is that this is a value that our leadership at our company believes in. And that resonates when you talk about the core values of our company. You talk about what are the three most important things in our company. Core values, we tell most important things: employee centered, customer focused, and community minded. So we're thinking about how can the decisions are centered around our people. And then we're focused how those decisions are going to impact our clients. And then how can we give back to those we touch in our surroundings? And I would tell you, our leadership is very focused on this as well. This is one of those metrics when we do, some sort of, assessment before pre-hire. This is the type of thing we're looking at. We're looking at what type, how are you wired? How is your behavior? And you can query these things in an interview, but you don't necessarily, I like to balance both sides because people can sell me, right? They can come in and sell me something. I like to know kind of both sides of the equation. And I think, we've been blessed to have really good people when we have brought people into the collective through acquisition. I think we've been blessed that a lot of us share similar values. So these types of things have been very similar. Because again, we've done so many acquisitions, 16 acquisitions. So that's like getting remarried 16 times with blended families over and over again. And it can change a dynamic.
So you must take on business developers from other companies where they're not from this value set. How do you get them on board?
Again, like I said, I believe we've been fortunate to do a really good job at understanding our values and being able to articulate those clearly, and then asking what are your values, and then being able to figure out where there might be some gaps. I've been fortunate. Again, I've been very fortunate to meet some great people through this acquisition journey. Yeah. I've got an incredible team. I mean, there's no chance I would replace, I've got some great people on here, and I mean, they are fantastic, and they're not all from hire. They're a lot from acquisition that have been, come on part of the family.
You shared with me last year that when companies join you, other owners, their biggest aha is, or one of their biggest ahas is, I should have hired my first business developer earlier in my own business building journey.
I'm happy to elaborate. No, I'm happy. Yeah. As companies grew, the founder was the key salesman. I'm going to say in 99% of the time, the founder was the key salesperson. And as your company started to grow, I think that owner mindset was, I don't necessarily want to replace myself because no one's going to be able to represent me as well as me in the marketplace. And that's a cost also that I've got to add. But what am I not doing, as by replacing myself? Because, I will tell you, trying to wear too many hats, you don't do something as well as you should. And I think that as we've seen, we've been able to, aggressively or, energize their organic growth engines just by taking that energy back, maybe from a founder, and then saying we're going to apply some energy to it with someone else. Maybe we had a really key account manager who did a lot of really good sales, and we just say, we're going to get you out of the account management business and focus you on business development. And they are off and running because they were waiting for something like this kind of opportunity that may have not existed, when it was a $3, $5, $7, $9 million company.
So anything else you want to say about salesmanship?
You asked a question, and your question was, does everyone believe this? And I would say, it takes a long time for, the realization, people can hear this and they go, oh yeah, that makes perfect sense. But there's a realization of putting the aha into habit. And that takes a lot longer than just, putting, I think we talked about putting core values on a wall feels good, but it's actually what you do that makes the difference, not necessarily what you say. And I think that's where the rubber meets the road. And I think that's what, I'm able to help my team with, is I'm able to say, what are you doing physically every day that's moving you closer to having more of a servant heart? What are you doing when you go to events? And I'll go with them and I'll shadow them and I'll just give them feedback. You're talking more than you're listening. You're
Right.
you're trying to push your agenda, not theirs.
Right.
You've got to really work on being authentic. Don't try to be what they want you to be. Just be you.
Yeah. This is good. So would you say when you hire a new business developer that it takes longer for them to get up to speed? Is this more of a longer term selling approach?
I would say, Jeffrey, good question. And regardless, if I hire somebody, even if they're from in the industry, I'm going to tell you, learning what you do, how you do it. If I'm lucky enough to find somebody that's with another brand, there's going to be a transition period. I don't care how good you are. There's a transition period of some sort. And let's say it's somewhere between 6 and 18 months. That's maybe the shortest window to the longest window.
Okay.
These are, again, I would argue that our hiring and our onboarding is going to help someone get up to speed quicker, because these are things that I've probably identified either through the hiring process, through the interview process, through the 2-week onboarding, 3-week intensive onboarding that we're going to do. And I'm going to start developing with them some, again, how are we going to do you believe this? One, and I'm going to tell you, they probably aren't working here if they don't believe it.
Yeah.
Because this is a core to us. I mean, I go back to our company core values. I mean, this is a core to who we are. So if you believe it, yes. Okay. Then what are some, where's the deficiency gap? And then let's work on the skills that are going to need to do. And some of it is we get on our own way. I mean, we've got some historical baggage that gets in the way, and we've got to be able to overcome some of that historical baggage so that we can become the person we want to be when we're out, trying to land new business.
So somebody listening should give at least 6 months to recognize if the person's a good fit for their company. Or, I mean, you're not really saying that. So put it in your own words.
A good fit is a tough one, Jeffrey. I mean, that's a tough one. Cause I mean, listen, we've all made hires that we sit back and go, well, I don't know what maybe it didn't align. Maybe I didn't get right information. Sometimes, weeks. But you don't necessarily need 6 months. I'm just saying, when you get a person that comes in business development, for them to start achieving the success that we need them to achieve in terms of results.
Yeah.
There is a window of time. Yeah. And I'm going to say the window of time is probably 6 to 18 months.
Right. It depends on the cycle, the buying cycle. Is that what you're saying?
Some of it's buying cycle. Some of it's, are they from in industry or are they not? If they're not from in industry, maybe they came out of the janitorial trade and they were a business developer in janitorial, but they know all the connections, but they don't necessarily know who we are and what we do and how to differentiate, to talk about the value. And they've got to learn that component. And then they've got to learn to put it in their own words so that it's authentic.
Yeah.
Because, I can give someone talking points, but if they can't speak to it as if they're just talking from their heart, then it's not real.
Yeah. Interesting. You talked about, being outside yourself. We have this expression in our coaching company. Whenever we have an issue, what should we do? Our mantra is answering the question, what's in the client's best interest? And that helps us solve any challenge we have that we're like, what do we do here? And so that's really our internal mantra to, protect our client and our own reputation.
So many times, you're exactly right, but so many times I can see a good person get off the rails. Now I'm going to say off the rails because they lost a little bit of focus when it comes to this. And it could be a situation. It could be, again, we all know this is, while this is not a difficult, like a hard business, it's a challenging business. And I think that there are times that we can lose our, we can become very frustrated. And sometimes when we get frustrated, we can make difficult or bad decisions. And I think when you start as a leader, when you start down a road like that, you've got to be really cautious because your people, if they believe in you and they trust you, that bad decision, that bad leadership could take you down a path unknowingly because you might be just frustrated. You might be having a bad day. You might be having a bad workout. Maybe you had a bad meal yesterday. Who knows what it could be? And so I think that's really checking that all the time. There's a quote that I have hanging up that I sits here, it sits with me pretty much everywhere I go. It's on the back of my phone, and it says, focus goes where energy flows. So my focus will always go to where my energy is applying itself to. So if I'm negative and I'm spiraling down and I've got this email and it's really pissing me off, it's really frustrating me, my focus is going to go to really being frustrated and pissed off. And I've got to really challenge myself. Is that really what I want to be doing?
Yeah.
Especially when I'm leading with a servant heart, when I'm selling with a servant heart. So I want to be serving. And you think about, and I know we've kind of tap danced over that word servant, again, one of those old fad words, but when you think about what a servant actually was, you think, centuries ago, it was someone who helped. That's what a servant was. They were someone who helped. It's not nothing degrading. It was, they were providing help. And that's the kind of attitude, the kind of culture, the kind of heart that, we want to have, that I believe makes great salespeople.
Yeah. You've got a tough job. I'm just imagining, right? 13 salespeople, business developers. How do you balance wanting to help your salespeople with holding them accountable, however you define that? How do you balance the different approaches needed for you to be successful?
I will tell you that consistency is really important. And so I am very consistent. So much like parenting, I'm a parent. So I believe consistency is super important. Understanding what the boundaries are, letting people know where they are inside those boundaries regularly, not once a year, not a couple times a year, not when they do something wrong, but regularly. So I would love to be able to meet with people weekly, physically not possible. I would run out of time. I wouldn't get anything done in my days, in my weeks. So I meet with people for 45 minutes every other week. Okay. And I've got a 5 bullet point agenda, and I'm extremely consistent. And it talks about, how they're doing, what are they doing? We look at the metrics, we look at wins, and then I ask them how I can help them.
So where does that boundary part come into that weekly, bi-weekly meeting?
So I let them know ahead of time what's expected of them. So every year when we're doing goal setting, this is what's expected of you. And there's no secret about this because we'll sit down in a regional meeting, so think about the world that I live in. There's regions. So there's 9 regions. I'll sit down in a regional meeting with a regional manager and their business developer and say, this is where we are targeting revenue for the following year. This is what's going to be, this is what we need from, the retention aspect of the business. And this is what we need from the growth aspect of the business, the organic growth aspect. And this is what this person's going to be responsible for. 1, do we think it's reasonable? Yes. Okay. 2, they're very clear on what this number is. Okay, great. Now, salesperson, I need, business developer, I need you to build a strategic plan around how you're going to accomplish this and work with your operational partner make sure that we're in alignment on the type of client we want to work for, the geographic area we want to be working for. So we just don't have rogue people out, throwing paper around that our operations folks aren't interested in.
Mm-hmm. So you have your business developers build their own sales plan, and then I'm assuming you're modifying or pushing back or helping mold it.
That's a great question. So we do a once a year, few day sales event on the off season. For the off season for us, we're a Midwest company for those listening. So for the off season for us is July, August. So before the bidding season starts back up for the next year, we'll do a couple day, and everyone will bring their plan. I appreciate you asking. And they are to present their plan in front of their peers, and their peers will help shoot holes in it.
So this is great. So have you pre-worked with each of them, or?
Yes, I have pre-worked with all of them.
So none of them are way off base. They may be slightly, but not.
But I'm not going to give them all the answer. I had some great teachers in my life. I think back through school, and the best teachers, they didn't tell me the answer, but they showed me how to get there.
Yeah. I'm holding my own, you didn't call it rodeo, but that's the word I heard. You didn't say that, sales rodeo. I'm holding my own rodeo tomorrow. A company from the Carolinas, they're bringing their leadership team here to New Orleans. And we have tasked each leader with presenting their plan to the group, and we're all going to shoot holes in it together. And I made sure the owner worked with each leader to, put some boundaries on the plan and give them some direction. So we're about to do the exact same thing here that you guys do.
Yeah, I find I've done this. This will be the third year this year that we've done this.
Yeah.
And it is really, one, there's a lot of fun in it, right? It's all about what you make it. And so there's a lot of fun in it. And I think people can learn from group participation. I also think that people can take critique of their work a lot better from their peer than their supervisor. And I think their supervisor, we all know, I think we know what right is, I think at the end of the day, but sometimes, like I said, we can get off track and we can get lost in the weeds on something. Yeah. But again, I think you asked me about, how do I keep them on board? I think the sales plan is important. That begins the foundation of setting the boundaries and the understanding of what they're expected to perform. And then when I meet with them regularly, I see their KPIs. I've got, number of leads, number of new opportunities, number of quotes.
So they've set their own KPI goals.
Their KPI goals are a metric that works backwards. Okay. So in sales, it's math. Once we get
are they setting their own sales goal?
No.
Do they impact their own sales goal?
They do. So that's the part about when we sit down, we'll sit down face to face with all of our regionals, with their business developers, their team. It could be one, it could be three, depending on the size of our regions. And we'll talk about where we were this year for our revenue objective and where we want to get to the next year for our revenue objective, and how are we going to do that? And that's, a culmination of retention, organic growth, replacement. And that when we get to the organic growth component, that begins the conversation of, as a business development person group, can we achieve this? Is it realistic? If we have to achieve $5 million, I'm using numbers, just random numbers. If we have to achieve $5 million of organic growth and we have one business developer, probably not realistic.
Right.
And we probably need to do something different, like hire, change the goal, figure something out, split the territory up, whatever.
As a sales manager, sales leader, how often are you pulling guys back? No, you're never going to hit that goal's too large, versus whatever the opposite is, pushing them. I think you can do more.
That's a great question. As you said it, I was starting to formulate my answer as I was listening to you, and I'm thinking, I have probably 50% of my team that will tell me they're going to do more than I need.
Yeah.
I have 50% of my team that sandbags, and I'm a golfer. And so I understand sandbagging. I understand the handicap system. So I work on historical performance. It's just math. It's data.
Yeah.
And so I'm just looking at raw data and saying, this is what you produced over the last 3, 4, 5. I mean, that's the beauty. Even with acquisition, we have access to historical data. So I can look back and say, you've done X for 5 years. So why would we do X minus? I'm not asking for X plus. I'm just asking for X.
Tell me your approach to handling someone who's just underperforming. They're off the track, more than a little bit. How much patience, grace do you give them? How do you double down your time you spend with them? Like, do you have a tried and true method for addressing business developers that definitely need attention?
Another great question. You're full of great questions today. You've done a lot of good preparation.
Yeah. It's my preparation is just being in the moment, like you said.
So I don't think, I have managed people most of my adult life. I mean, I'm not ashamed. I mean, I'm 57. I'm not afraid to say that. So, most of my adult life, and I wouldn't say there's any tried and true method to getting someone back on track. I think it's, for me, I want to be aware of what's maybe causing them to not be on track, because I think we go through kind of an extensive process of getting someone on board. And so when they don't make it, and it does happen, when they don't make it, I'm examining why.
Yeah.
And I'm asking them a lot deeper questions. And yes, the frequency goes up. I'm regularly meeting with them, twice a week.
Go ahead. Can I make this question more difficult?
Please.
Let's say they've got a history of doing great and suddenly they're going through marriage problems.
Mm-hmm.
How many months, how long is your patience? Like, I'm sure you're totally understanding, but how long do you go on? Months, years? I mean, I'm just exaggerating here because not everything works out. How much patience do you have?
It doesn't. And I would tell you it's got to do with the person. And again, there's probably no line in the sand. So I could tell you 2 stories here. One, using the same scenario. Employee works for me, has a track record of performance, going through some sort of family crisis, and starts to underperform significantly. And I mean significantly by, you're talking a larger than 50% drop in production. And so one person, through conversations with me, is aware, understanding of where they are, and has plans to work their way out of it. Another one, different person, is consumed with the problem at home, cannot let anything professionally come into their brain because the personal situation is all consuming. I want to work with the person generally who wants help and wants to improve their situation.
Yeah.
Someone that gets stuck, I want to say you stay stuck in the mud, but they get stuck. If they can't, even when I may sit them down and have a hard conversation and talk about an improvement performance plan, if they can't get out of their personal, stuck in the mud, then it's probably, even though you may have great fit, like at some point, I don't know when that may be. You say months. I don't think it's years.
Right.
But it's probably like, I'm probably going to do, I'm going to throw a couple Hail Marys, because again, I finding someone who does perform is very challenging.
Yeah.
So I'm going to fight, and I'm probably going to involve somebody outside of me
that
can maybe maybe my message isn't getting through. So I may call one of my peers and say, I need you to sit down with so-and-so, and this is why.
Yeah. I mean, I know it's not years. I was exaggerating on the extremes to understand how you look at it. And
my experience, Jeffrey, and this, again, you brought up a point that's real. I mean, that's a real business problem. I mean, it's, people deal with personal things in their lives. And I believe that if I come at it from what would I want someone to do with me? And I would want someone to sit down with me and say, okay, we've got a little performance gap. I know what's going on. Let's not tap dance around the elephant in the room. Mm-hmm. These are the things I need you to do when you're here. Can you do them?
Yeah.
Can you be present? Can you be focused on delivering the message to your prospect, client, whatever it may be? Can you be here? And I recognize that other problem needs dealt with. If you need to deal with it, carve out an hour and go deal with it, and don't answer phone calls for work, and then come back. But when you're back. If they can do those behaviors, and listen, I think they have a chance of greater success getting back on track quicker.
So your advice is to compartmentalize and get things handled.
I think that, from a leader's perspective, not be afraid to ask the tough questions and help them get back on track.
Yeah.
And, I think often we often in leaders, you don't want to get your hands dirty. I mean, I hate to say that, but you don't want to get your hands dirty. And I think that's part of the care. I think that's part of who we are. I think when we care and we love people, and we love the people we're with, part of that is we got to get our hands dirty a little bit.
By that, you mean meet people where they are.
Yeah.
So that was sort of a sad example. Let's do a opposite end. Where do you find, besides acquisitions, give us a tip on recruiting? Where do you find your best business developers?
Boy, oh boy. Hanging off of a tree. I have been really fortunate. I mean, I think timing has been a lot of it, where we have had an opportunity and it arose and the right person presented themselves. I think that sometimes in smaller companies, where an owner is the business development arm, they have a key employee who believes and knows they can do more. Maybe that person reaches out to us and says, I just want to see what you guys have to offer. The beauty, business development, when you're in a marketplace, you're really the face of the organization. You're really delivering the message. You're delivering who we are into the marketplace. And, that responsibility, I don't take lightly, and I don't think my folks take very lightly, that they're out representing our brand every day in their actions, their behavior, their words, so I think that, when you find somebody that may be, the VP of operations, but he got there in a small company because he kept getting promoted, but maybe he's really got that heart for being in front of clients, solving problems, and he just wanted to have that opportunity where he could go out and, wow everybody with his performance. Go ahead.
I just wanted to repeat two things you said that I think the audience should really pay attention to. You said looking for someone who's had a few internal promotions. I just read a book on leadership that talked about that being a real positive signal for someone who has a growth mindset, not when they've grown by jumping ship to another company, but when they've stayed on the ship and made their way up. And so I think that's a general truth, what you said. And the other thing you said was, could be somebody at a company where they're just held back. And if you can network with them and recognize talent, and not just in business development, but it could be in any opportunity. Mm-hmm. Those are two truths that I think we can all apply everywhere.
And, again, I think that you said something there, network. And I think that requires us to get out of our comfort zone a little bit as leaders in our businesses, and we've got a network.
Yeah.
I'm super fortunate. I would say I probably work with the king networker in the industry. And so, I think Jerry is an unbelievable networker, and we can all aspire to the kind of networking that he does.
Yeah.
And so I think he sets a great example for us every day in his behavior of what networking, it's being willing to be a little uncomfortable. And I think that's really what networking is about. I mean, you never know by reaching out, you never know what the outcome may be.
Jerry is, he's very humble. He's very likable. And I've met many of the people doing what he's doing. And he's different in that you'd be sitting next to him at a bar. You wouldn't know who he was, but you'd have a great beer with him.
You would.
And he really does like to give back.
Yes. And again, I think when you really think about, you talked about is this, I'm going to go back to the values and the servant attitude. That's really a component of who he is. And I think that's, even though listen, there's nothing that's been easy about what we've done over 4 years. It's hard.
Yeah.
And anybody that is doing it, it's hard. It's work. I think the glue that keeps us together is the foundation. You talk about your foundation, I think is the foundation that we know that we're all in this to serve people. And that's really where our heart's at, is we really want to serve people. Yeah, we cut grass. Yes, we plow snow. Yeah, we put mulch down, but we're really about serving people.
Let me segue to my final question for you, Todd.
Yes, sir.
So we're holding our Summer Growth Summit in Cleveland, and Schill Grounds Management is the host company, meaning we're going to come visit you at 2 of your branches. We're going to see 10 of you and 9 others at your 2 branches, giving us talks on your secret sauce. We're going to hear from a couple executives the day before and a couple other executives the day after. So we're really going to get to meet many people on your team. And
you are,
from your perspective, what do you share? A couple things you're kind of most excited about or most proud of that you're going to be showing us?
I will tell you what I'm most proud of is what people will experience when they see the collective that we have created. And that's the unification of the companies. Now, listen, I talked about blended family. I mean, if you've ever gone through a blended family situation,
I have.
So I have too. And I will tell you, it's not easy. And, but to see how we've been able to come together and unify and work towards common good and goals, I think I'm super proud about that. I am about giving. I mean, I think we all are about giving back. And that's why I think, Jeffrey, one of the reasons that we all agreed that this was a good fit is that we're really about giving back. And I'm excited to give back and share with people about what I do, what we do. Maybe stir up a little special sauce up on the stage in front of them and share, and then be transparent and authentic. I don't want to just put on a show and, pull something out of a magic hat and go poof.
Yeah.
I'd rather just be authentic and answer questions and give people, have them go back. And I think I said this, and I did a podcast with you about a year ago. You referenced that earlier. And I think I said at the end, I mean, I hope that people can walk away and, there's been a couple things that have challenged them that they're going to look back and they're going to say, yeah, maybe I can improve myself in those couple little bit of ways, because you never know where you're going to get that little nudge. That little nudge may be that big thing that takes you over that next hurdle.
Listen, I really appreciate you taking time out of your very busy schedule, and I'm excited to see you this summer.
It'll be exciting, Jeffrey. Thank you for making the time, and thank you for agreeing to come on up to Cleveland and see us.
Thank you.